All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. My name's Jeremy Haynes. I want to help you hit $1 million months. If you're new to the channel, I'd appreciate you subscribing. Go check out all my other videos, by the way. Every single one of them dedicated to helping you hit $1 million months. I got a great topic for you here today. Environmentally wise, we're at the Four Seasons Chicago in one of their one-bedroom apartments. Pretty badass, would check it out. Without further ado, let's jump right in. So to be clear, there's a lot of you guys when you're trying to hit $1 million months that are in these two buckets, okay? Bucket number one is organically you've managed to get a couple $100,000 a month going for yourself, and you've dabbled in paid advertising, okay? Every time you try it, it shits the bed. You barely ever spend anything into it because, let's be honest, right? Organically, you're just printing cash in your eyes with no cost besides all the time and significant costs that it takes to produce the content in that time that you spend. But regardless, when you look at paid advertising, you look at it as, okay, I officially have to spend money to acquire customers, and it's a little daunting. So you generally stay away from it, and you occasionally dabble in it because you hear stories of people that are absolutely fucking printing with paid ads. These are your buddies, these are your friends, these are people you hear about, these are stories like this, okay? To be clear, every time you've dabbled in it though, it fails, and you just kind of revert back to this perspective of like, I know it can work and I know I need it to work, but now I'm sold again on trying to scale up organically. Organically then, again and again and again for you, creates inconsistency, a lack of predictability, a lack of control, and so again, you get back to this perspective of like, now I need to do paid advertising again. The other people who are sitting here watching this that fit in this category I'm talking about are people who are dabbling in paid advertising, but you're not spending nearly the amount that I would encourage you to spend, okay? Even if you're generating a good profit, what you have to understand about advertising is it requires you to press the gas to experience a different set of lessons at every new level of spend. Every new level of spend creates a dramatically different set of probabilities that are in your favor, more so when you spend more in comparison to when you spend less. And the statistics are also very different between spending less and spending more. So I want to address those two demographics specifically. The demographics of people, again, who are doing a couple $100K a month, maybe even high couple $100K a month, but you haven't really like fully committed to paid advertising and really put like a serious budget towards it and genuinely committed to it in the fullest. You're just a fucking paid advertising dabbler, okay? So let me give you the simplest perspective. Paid advertising is gambling. That's all it is. However, ideally, we can develop an edge, okay? When we develop an edge as paid advertisers, we have a dramatically higher probability of taking the gamble to a calculated risk and something that has, to be fair, very high probabilities of returning the cash to us. And there's several things that create this edge. Okay, edge number one is the ad strategies that we deploy with. Okay, if you just do standard direct response, if you don't know like the valuable lessons of having the right messaging, sometimes I talk to people where I'm like, hey, who are you trying to sell to? Like brokies? And they're like, no, I'm trying to sell to people who are like financially well off. And I'm like, every hook that you're using says something about like quitting a 9-to-5. Like financially well off people who work jobs don't want to fucking quit. They want extra income. And if whatever you're selling them creates an opportunity to eventually quit, like that's great, but based on your messaging, it makes it seem like you're really just trying to go after broke people who want to quit their job and hate the 9-to-5 world. Whereas most people who are financially well off that work jobs, like they're happy to do what they do, want some extra cash, don't want to feel like they're being pressured into having to quit their job or that what you're selling is going to take that much time. They want to be sold on the fact that with the extra hours they have, they could still spend time with their family, still have a good quality of life, put a few hours a week into whatever you're going to sell them, have a probability to generate some more revenue. And at the end of the day, like, hey, maybe one day it'll allows them to be able to quit their job, but that's not necessarily like the outcome that they're mainly going after. It's just some extra cash. To be clear, every time that we see somebody who's doing that, create that messaging difference, they see a dramatically different quality of person that comes through. Okay, so ad strategies being like how you set your campaigns up, budget strategies, what you optimize the campaigns for. As an example, like as simple as this sounds, optimizing a campaign for like link clicks versus optimizing a campaign for a high quality standard event based on some type of direct response objective. You see what I'm saying? So to be clear, when it comes to ad strategies, kind of a subcategory of this that I mentioned there is the messaging, okay? So with proper ad strategy, with proper messaging, we dramatically increase the probability for a good result on the other side. We combine that with funnel strategies, and our funnel strategies in combination with our ad strategies, this stacks and compounds the potential result that we can generate. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a compounded edge. Not just one thing that gives us an edge, but a compounded edge. So ad strategies, proper messaging, proper targeting, setting campaigns up in the right way. I went into a guy's account. I've used this example probably in like 4 different videos I've shot because it's so insane to me. It's one of the wildest things I've ever seen in my advertising career. I came into an account and audited it, and the advertiser wasn't using headlines. They weren't using any kind of primary text. They were optimizing for an opt-in, an application, and a scheduled call, qualified or unqualified, all towards the leads standard event, which is a very low quality opt-in based standard event to optimize for. And dude, it was just crazy. It was like all the worst possible things you could do, this specific advertiser was doing, diminishing their edge, dramatically lowering their probability of actually getting a good result based on how they set everything up. In addition to that, their funnel was fucking trash, therefore diminished the probability of having success with the bet. Okay? Other examples of an edge, most of us sitting here, we sell through sales teams. There's a few of you watching this where you're likely selling through webinars, and you have a price point somewhere probably between like $1,000 and $5,000, and you're being able to get away with selling without having to go through a sales team, and that's great, to be fair. But most people sitting here watching this are selling through a sales team. Even the people selling through webinars typically eventually start selling through sales teams too. My point being, the value the sales team brings for increasing our probability of a successful bet is obviously huge, dramatic, tremendous, okay? With a shit sales team, we obviously lower our probabilities a lot to have a good bet, okay? In addition to that, the staff, okay? All the people that are involved. This would be like your marketing team, this would be your advertisers, this would be like your consultants, the people who are just helping you in general. All that makes a big difference to your edge, okay? Follow-up, like your marketing automation. These would be your emails, your texts, your tech stack, okay? Whether salespeople are sending things in an autonomous way or a manual way, whether salespeople are sending selfie videos, whether it's automated, whether you're sending with green text on like shit Androids versus sending from iPhones, or using softwares that can mimic blue text, which are very few and far between, but we have tested one recently, which has been cool. My point being, there's just a few things that increase edge. In addition to that, budget increases edge, okay? So there's this guy, he's covered head to toe in tattoos. Maybe you've seen his content if you're chronically online. And one thing that this guy does, okay, he goes into Vegas and he brags about making like tens of millions, not even millions, tens of millions of dollars off of playing Baccarat, okay? And when he plays Baccarat, he doesn't do it at a small level. Like every single hand is such an uncomfortable amount of money for like a typical gambler who goes into a Vegas casino. But he does that because the amount he bets per hand dramatically increases the edge in his favor against the house. He also knows mathematically based on each hand what the probabilities are going to be for him. So if there's a particular hand that the banker has or the counterparty has versus what he has, he also knows when he should double down, just like somebody playing blackjack or poker would. They know when they should go all in or when they should double up. Okay? And they also know when they need to deleverage risk and they need to pull out of the bet and they need to essentially cover because they know there's a higher probability they're gonna lose. You see, a gambler, a proper gambler who goes into a casino with an edge, they're so few and far between because most people walk into the casino and they just say, well, this is the amount I'm comfortable gambling tonight, and if I lose it, I lose it. I'm like chalking it up for entertainment purposes. They do literally zero fucking research on how to create the edge inside of the casino, okay? They don't even know the mathematical probabilities on each different game or machine that they could sit down and play on. There's one guy named Vegas Matt, who I got to meet, by the way, one time in person. Shout out to Matt if he's ever watching this. To be clear, Matt goes in and plays slot machines a lot. That was a lot of the first content I saw from Vegas Matt. And I remember in one video he explained, he was like, there's a certain amount of pulls in a slot machine where you just sit there and crank it a bunch of times where the probabilities become essentially extreme, for a jackpot to play out. And that's why a lot of people who play slot machines, like, I'll sit there for hours, or even, as disgusting as it sounds, like piss in the chair because they're not willing to leave and let somebody else come and encroach on their machine because they've invested so much to eventually increase that probability. You see, from these kind of perspectives, you start to understand a very key idea. Okay, so in advertising, it's math, okay? It's math and it's financial modeling. Math and financial modeling create that same edge that the slot machine guys are talking about, that the blackjack people are talking about when they go in and double down versus when they pull out and they deleverage risk and they try to lose as little as possible. Advertising's the same in the sense that there'll be times where you need to recognize, I've got to go all in on a bet. Like the statistics are playing out in your favor, you need to start aggressively scaling into it, and you need to push it to its literal limit, okay? And thankfully, unlike casino gambling, when you do advertising properly, that whole be really aggressive for an extended period of time, without exaggeration, can sometime last years, okay? Versus in a gamble in a casino, obviously it's just that single hand is typically when you're going all in on a bet or deleveraging based on when a bet's gonna play against you. It's the same thing again when you're trying to deleverage risk. You have to be able to recognize when you're being a pussy with your budget and statistics can improve just with more spend versus when something's not actually probable to work. And therefore you need to reduce budget, make some adjustments and optimizations, and then scale back into it aggressively, okay? So even that, when I just say math and financial modeling, I am quite literally saying there are times where you need to aggressively punch the gas, and there are times where you need to pull back, optimize, and then push forward again. But most people, and this is the thing, most people fall into this category specifically, okay? Where no matter what happens, they'll just pull back, okay? Like the most minor thing that barely goes wrong happens and they'll be like, oh, we gotta pull back spend. We gotta pull back spend and optimize. So therefore you stay stuck in this like perpetual cycle, like the organic people who never fucking actually commit to paid ads, or the paid ads people who never commit to being able to spend big fucking budgets. You know, and at the end of the day, like that's what it comes down to. You have to be able to go in with this level of comfort, okay? If I walk into a casino and I'm thinking to myself, you know, it's all or nothing tonight. Like I remember there's a story of the FedEx founder. He was on the verge of bankruptcy with FedEx. It was called Kinko's at the time. And he went into a casino and he put like $5,000 on black. He won, and like without exaggeration, FedEx wouldn't exist today if he didn't win that specific hand. Imagine the pressure. Just take a moment. Imagine the pressure of the situation. Maybe it was liberating in the instance he lost. It is what it is. We've obviously seen the guy become a billionaire as a result of that single hand and a bunch of other decisions, to be fair. But my point being, there's like a level of comfort when you walk into a casino and you think to yourself, okay, I got $1,000. I'm gonna put it on black, or I'm gonna gamble a few hands, you know, or I'm gonna sit down and play slots or whatever. And regardless of whether you're aware of the math or not, you're just comfortable. You're like, if I lose it, I lose it. You know, it's not gonna financially put me in ruin. It's not gonna put me in an irresponsible spot. But like, hey, you know, if I win, like I'm happy. But if I lose, it's like, oh, it is what it is. You know, I got a few free drinks, maybe a meal or something, and I had some fun. That's the kind of perspective you wanna have when you're advertising, but you do wanna take the math side seriously. You wanna act like the guy who's going to play baccarat or blackjack or poker or fucking slots, who is aware of the math, who is going in intentionally attempting to make money, that is trying to pull as much as possible, that is trying to double down when it's appropriate and reduce risk when it's not. You know, again, that's trying to maximize their returns. However, you want to do it with the perspective of comfort as well, like the totally regular person who's like, yeah, I'm gonna gamble $1,000 tonight, and like, hey, if I don't make it back, like whatever, you know, if I do, great, if not, whatever. You have to have that same level of comfort with whatever you're gonna risk on paid advertising. It can't ever be like an over-leveraged amount of money where the flip has to work out, right? I'll give you a pretty radical example, like more of like a hood example, where if somebody takes their re-up money, meaning like, okay, they buy drugs, right? They risked a certain amount to be able to buy a certain amount, they go out and they sell a certain amount, and they come back and like they gamble that amount of money that they just earned in profit. Well, that could be diminishing for them, because if they took that amount of money they just earned and they reinvested it, they could buy more, therefore they could sell more the next time around, and then do that process again and again and again and continue to increase their returns every flip that they have. That is how, you know, a person like Jay-Z is an example, or 50 Cent is another example. They commonly talk about this. It's a great book, by the way, from 50 Cent called The 50th Rule, and it's an extension of the 48 Laws of Power. It's actually called The 50th Law, and dude, I love that book. I fucking love that book. And 50 Cent openly talks about that process. And he also talks about the fact that like gambling, there's times where like he would take a certain amount of profit out instead of reinvesting it to go buy like stupid shit, like a car, or like, you know, some guns or like protection or whatever. I digress. The point I'm attempting to make is, okay, there's a level of comfort that comes when you are going into it like thinking, I'm gonna spend this amount. If I blow it, like in advertising, at least I'm gonna learn something. I'm gonna be able to take a lesson out of it and like improve the next time I go in and gamble. But it's not gonna put me in a financially like irresponsible place, and I'm not gonna feel fucked up as a result of doing it. We had a guy just apply for our Inner Circle program, and that's where we do the twice a month one-on-one calls, weekly group calls, quarterly masterminds, and we have the group chat on Telegram with a bunch of rich people trying to get richer. He applies in for it, and the price of it, right? The guy was, you know, going into Q4, his costs had inflated. Unfortunately for him, like he was in a position of high risk, like over leveraged would be the right word. And the small investment of the Inner Circle was too much for the guy. He was comparing it to like this mental place he was in of just saying, you know, this, as small as it is like something I really feel I should just put towards ad spend right now. It's not an expense when you join into the Inner Circle, it's a revenue driven cost. Like in that guy's case, if he wouldn't have demonstrated those characteristics to us and we would have let him in, we denied him, of course, just based on the fact he was over leveraged and like really high pressure. But my point being, dude, if that guy would have gotten our help, he would have stacked all these edges right here where we could come in and like teach him better ad strategies, teach him better messaging, teach him better targeting, teach him better funnel strategies. Potentially, I teach people in their sales teams all the time tactics and strategies that help increase their conversion rates too. We could refer better staff if he needed it, or at the least, again, we could train up his existing marketing staff to be better, teach him and train him on better email, SMS follow-up systems, manual salespeople follow-up systems. We could develop a financial model for a guy like that to make him more comfortable with the bet that he's choosing to make through Q4. He took my Q4 advice. If you didn't see that video, you can go check it out, where I said sometimes all you got to do is spend double in Q4. If you see a reduction in your profits, you need to spend double sometimes just to be able to make the same amount, or technically net a little more, or maybe just a little less of what you were previously making, but you're gonna have to risk twice as much on the spend. He was not in a position of comfort. He lacked that characteristic, and because he lacked that characteristic, it took him to a place mentally where he couldn't do something as simple as increasing his edge, because scarcity creates this like survival mode mindset. Everybody here who's rich and trying to get a hell of a lot richer and hit $1 million months, you've been in scarcity mindset before, okay? You know when you've over leveraged yourself on a bet. You know when you've taken yourself to a place where you are not thinking clearly because like the bet has to work out, okay? And if the bet doesn't work out, you are fucked. You've been there before, and you know what I'm talking about. So that's why I say it's important where, when you're advertising and you're taking it to this place of like, okay, it's a gamble and I'm trying to get my edge. Dude, comfort is probably like the foundation to all these other things. You know what I mean? Without that, everything just becomes way too high pressure and you dramatically lower your probability of success, okay? So when you look at advertising from a perspective of gambling and you specifically define whether you have an edge or not in particular areas, and you compound all of these things to culminate a higher probability of you taking a calculated risk and generating those returns, that's where it becomes worth it, okay? That's where it becomes easy to spend a fuckload of money, okay? But you also have to be aware of how the game works, okay? When you are not aware of how the game works, you are also fucked, okay? As an example, let's say you sit down and you play Monopoly and you're playing against somebody who knows every fucking rule in and out, okay? They know all the little tricks. They know all the little loopholes. They know the probability of when you pull a community chest card, what might show up in terms of a good thing versus a bad thing. They know how to like roll the fucking dice a particular way. You sit down just to have fun, okay? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm here to play Monopoly. You didn't read the rule book, okay? You don't know what the fuck you're doing. And somebody casually explains you the game in like 30 seconds, like most new games you've ever played, okay? If that's how you sit down and you play Monopoly, what do you think the odds are that you're gonna beat the other player who knows every fucking rule? Okay, as an example, let's say you're competing against one of my clients or me. It's like, dog, I got every fucking edge I just described, okay? And I know how the game works. My clients know how the game works. You see what I'm saying? Versus like when you sit down and you don't know how the game works, what do you think your probability is of winning against the competitors? And by the way, advertising and paid ads, same thing organically, just to be clear. You're competing against other people. You're competing against people for reach. You're in an auction system when you're advertising on social media platforms. You're literally bidding your dollars against somebody else to outcompete them to reach the ideal customers you want and convert them first. You see? So it's like my point being, you gotta know the game. You gotta figure out how that shit works. Okay, I'm gonna give you a basic lesson as an example, just to give you some perspective. So when you start, okay, and you look at ad spend, okay, and you just look at dollars, okay, and you look at what it takes, the cost to acquire a customer, cost per acquisition, okay? When you spend a little bit of money, guess what? Your cost of acquiring a customer should be low because you're barely spending any fucking money. It's like if I go in and let's use the example, I'm in a fresh ad account, okay? Here's another little example of the rules to the game and how to play the game. A new ad account typically has a $50 a day limit. There's little things you could do to speed that up, by the way, like verifying a business manager, making sure every charge goes through successfully, and also making sure no ads get disapproved. I digress though. My point being, if I'm only spending 50 bucks a day and I can still pull off generating qualified calls or qualified leads or whatever the fuck you're doing, and I can generate customers as a result, dude, my cost per acquiring customer is gonna be nothing. It's gonna be nothing, okay? Because you're spending no money. Versus, okay, take the guy over here. He's spending a fuckload of money. He's putting up like 500K a month, okay? You over here, at this little guy level, let's use the example, you're at like a 10-to-1 ROAS, okay? Versus, let's take this guy over here. Let's say that he is at a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ROAS, okay? So this guy's spending 500K in a month on ad spend. He's flipping it into $1 million, okay? Maybe if he's doing a 2 to 1 or a 3 to 1, it'd be 1.5 million. So let's just say he's between $1 million and 1.5 million, give or take the month, because it fluctuates, it's never the same, okay? Versus this guy over here who's doing 10 to 1, let's say that he's spending $5,000 in a month, okay? So this guy over here doing 10 to 1, he's getting $50,000 out of it. So the deficit here, this person's cash collecting $45,000 versus this guy over here who's only at a 2 to 1 or a 3 to 1, he's cash collecting $500K to $1 million gross net in that example, okay? The appeal of maintaining a 10 to 1 ROAS is commonly held by the people at the bottom of the game spending no money. The big dogs, they're fucking pumped to get a 2 to 1 ROAS, putting up $500,000 in a month on spend because they're pocketing infinitely more, hundreds of thousands to literally millions of dollars more in comparison to the small fries, okay? There are so many more small fries than there are big dog when it comes to putting up spend numbers because most of the small fries never do math, or just like the drug example, they're playing the flip game, but they're pulling out the profit that they would need to reinvest to get the next flip bigger, okay? So that's why you stay stuck at these small levels. That's an example of how the game works. See what I'm saying? Versus the big dog, dude, that profit they got of the $500K to $1 million, guess what? They're gonna fucking gamble that the next month and try to go from $500K a month in ad spend to like $750 or maybe even $1 million and see if it holds. See what I'm saying? And they don't freak out when the ROAS diminishes a little bit. They start to try to identify the bottlenecks within their advertising and sales process and see which statistic is most probable to double and which one is the easiest to double so they can reduce their cost of acquiring customers. You see, so they can reduce their cost per lead, reduce their cost per whatever it is, cost per live call, cost per showed up, whatever. See what I'm saying? It's like the small fries, they try to stay convinced that like they need to maintain massive fucking ROAS, you know, and that like that ROAS is gonna happen the entire time. I had a client just recently, they self-proclaim themselves as not being educated on advertising and marketing. So, you know, they rely heavily on my expertise, which most clients do, but this client in particular, like really, really strong organic brand, like over $1 million a month organically. We're tacking on an extra $1 million a month via paid ad, okay? And we're doing that successfully, it's great. To be clear, they had a random event that they wanted to drive some sales for. So they had a sales page, okay, back to the edges. We had a great ad strategy where we were gonna leverage content, we were gonna leverage classic direct response in combination. We had a great funnel based on best practices for converting people on a $1,750 ticket price to come to an event in person. We had a quantity of tickets we wanted to sell. It was about 75, okay? They already sold a bunch organically. 75 was the amount they wanted to fill. To be clear, I launched the campaign, okay? They gave me a budget on this specific campaign of like $10,000 and about a week and a half to try to generate the 70-ish customers they wanted. Right away, we're generating customers for less than $50, okay? You get cost per purchase in like the 40s for a $1,750 ticket. The ROAS, right, and by the way, they're upselling something at the event. So we're acquiring people who are probable to buy something else at an event at a huge ROAS. I don't even know what the ROAS is there. Spending $40 and flipping it into $1,750 right off the bat. And there's no salespeople, it's a sales page, okay? So to be clear, the client calls me up. They're like, hey, I didn't know this was gonna be possible. And we didn't just get like 1 or 2 sales, by the way, at $40. We got a bunch, we got like 10. They call me up, they're like, hey, didn't know this was gonna be this successful. I wanna crank it. You know, you think you can get like 200 people in there? And I was like, fuck yeah, I can get 200 people. So they give me a little bit more budget. They up the budget to about $30,000. So I add the extra budget. I go from 10K, okay, back to the small fry example. I go from 10K to a little bit more than that, you know, about 30K. What do you think happens to my cost per purchase? Does it stay the same? Does it slightly increase or does it decrease? What do you think? Go ahead and take a moment. Hopefully you were right. It's slightly increased, okay? It went from about $40 to about $150-ish. Client was like kind of shocked, almost upset, like kind of confused. Remember, they don't know a lot about paid advertising. So they're like, what the fuck's going on? Why is it more expensive? And I'm like, well, hold on. First of all, it's an incredible cost per purchase, okay? We're still getting a tremendous ROAS. If it was $500, if it was $1,000, if it was $1,500, I'd be happy. Because again, if we can get them in the door profitably or even break even, it's like you're upselling something for $40,000 at the event. Like, we should be pumped. We're able to get people in the door, okay? But keep in mind, this like conditioning starts to set in for the guppies. When the conditioning starts to set in of like, well, I can get cost per purchases of $40, that's an illusion. That's what happens at the small fry levels of ad spend. Again, like if we could fill the entire room with 1,000 people and it cost $1,500 a ticket and they make all of their money back and increase the quantity of people in the room that they get to upsell $40,000 thing to. You get what I'm saying? You see how obvious that is? But once again, in real time, like the illusion of the small fries, when you're either coming over organically to paid and you're starting to scale and you see your cost per lead, your cost per purchase, your cost per whatever start to slip a little bit against you, but you're still wildly profitable, you think like, oh fuck, you know, like I gotta stop scaling, I've gotta become more efficient and optimize all this shit, and then you get caught in this like optimization cycle. Okay, here's how it looks. It's like you start to scale a little bit, and then you're like, oh no, I need to pull back and I need to optimize. And you're like, oh, I need to start to scale a little bit, and then you're like, oh no, I need to pull back and optimize. Oh, I need to start to scale a little bit. Oh, no, my cost per lead slipping again. I need to optimize. And you never fucking grow. You know what I'm saying? You never fucking grow. Versus people like me, it's like, okay, I'm making more money. I'm spending more money. My cost is going to go up. I need to optimize. I'm still needing to spend more money to make more money. I still need to scale, but I'm optimizing along the way. And it's like, I'm consistently growing. My clients are consistently growing. Most of the small fries, again, like they'll expand and contract. They'll expand and contract. They'll expand and contract. But the big dogs is like constantly up and to the right in comparison. Okay, and even though the ROAS diminishes, again, they're doing math because that's a part of the edge, and they're thinking, dude, I would fucking love to get a 2-to-1 if I could spend $1 million in a month, versus I would hate to get a 10-to-1 and only spend like $10,000 or $50,000 in the month comparatively. You get what I'm saying? So my point being, okay, I want you to really figure out, it's like the task of this video. I'd love for you to kind of be mindful of this. First of all, your edges, okay? What's fucking you? Just like the guy who walks into the casino, the girl walks in the casino, I'm willing to lose $1,000, have a few drinks tonight and just chalk it up as having fun if I lose the money. Are you like that when you do paid advertising? Okay, do you want to be like that? Because you probably are, okay? Or do you want to be aware of every single edge you could have and fucking develop every single one of those edges to as strong as it can get? Compound every single edge, therefore dramatically increasing your probability. It's just a calculated bet. It's calculated risk. Highly probable to make back the money, therefore enabling you to spend a fuckload more money. You know, all these edges. And again, do you know how the game works? If you don't know how the game works, just like the Monopoly analogy, you are fucking getting hosed against the competitor who knows every rule. They know how the game works. They know the premise of the game. They know the intention of the game. They know the little rules of the game that you don't fucking know. They know the loopholes of the game that you don't know. They're gonna sweep you. They're gonna run circles around you. And as you're scaling, again, knowing how the game works through and through makes a tremendous, dramatic difference to the probability of your success in hitting $1 million months or tacking on another $1 million a month. You get what I'm saying? So anyway, you want to know how the game works, you want to know how to dramatically increase all these edges, I'd encourage you to sign up for my Inner Circle program. There's a link in the description. One-on-one help from your boy. We do weekly group calls on Saturdays at 11 a.m. You could request whatever the hell you want us to talk about. We always talk about something that's probable to make you more money. Quarterly masterminds, we do them in person in Miami, Florida. We record them all as well, of course, and we stream them live in the instance you're not able to make it in person. We do those in January, April, July, and October, top of every quarter. And again, group chat on Telegram, rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer. It's a great group if you're doing a couple $100,000 or $1 million a month. We have minimums for what you got to make to even apply in there. So at the least, you know, check out the application and see if you're qualified. And we encourage you, again, if you're going to ever take action on that, you got to be an action taker, okay? You got to be an action taker and you got to be in the right place. Just like I said in the example in this video today, we deny people all the time when they're the wrong people or they're in high pressure situations, or again, they're not there to like really be a good fit. We don't want all those people. We want the right people who are actually going to be value adds to the community. So if you want to be in something like that, we'd love for you to apply. We also have a link below to apply for our agency. I actually ran some statistics earlier for that specific application funnel. More than 90% of the people come through it don't even get past question 1 for the initial qualifier. So there's a very, very low probability that you'll be able to actually work with our agency, just given the situation you might be in. But again, you know, if you think it's worth a shot to apply for that, go ahead. Very high probability we'll push you over to the Inner Circle in most instances. So don't be shocked if you get forwarded over to that page if you go through and apply to the agency. And look, at the least, check out all my other YouTube videos. They're all here to help you. They're all here to increase your probabilities of hitting $1 million months. I look forward to helping you on that journey. And subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Please like the video, comment, share it to a buddy that might appreciate it. And hey, for the sake of yourself, your family, your loved ones, and all those around you, your community, go out there and get a hell of a lot richer than you are right now. You owe it to the world. See you in the next video.